right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. Got a fun topic to talk about today, and this is something that is very current at the moment, where we kind of feel like we're moving into another phase or another era of training where we're seeing a lot of endurance athletes embracing functional fitness or looking at kind of high intensity training more so than ever. And that's through the sport of Hyrox. Now, Hyrox is something that has kind of come out, I think it's been born out of obviously the last decade plus with CrossFit obviously coming to the forefront. But essentially, it's great functional fitness. Like, it's a great example, great test to showcase people's fitness attributes. This is all obviously just personal thoughts, reflection. I mean, I don't know how much you guys know about my personal background as a coach, but, you know, living abroad in Australia, obviously we built, you know, we kind of established strength for endurance whilst living over in Australia, whilst my wife was training full-time as a triathlete. And now we were immersed in the endurance community over there. But living on the east coast of Australia, it was a massive mecca for CrossFit at the time. And I was often be down at the box, Byron Bay CrossFit, and participating in some of the random kind of WODs and workouts of the day. And I'll be doing a lot of the 5x5 strength conditioning work, you know, when we're kind of the barbell-based training, and Gold Coast weightlifting club would come down and we'd be doing a lot of barbell cycling work, etc. But CrossFit, you know, I got to go on the CrossFit Level 1 course, actually one of the best 2-day training courses you can do if you're interested, obviously, in understanding the biomechanics of lifting, etc. It's a pretty full, comprehensive 2 days of coaching. But what I'm saying here, guys, is that experience, you know, this is 15 years plus of understanding these types of functional fitness training environments. And obviously, Hyrox being the most current, it's become a global phenomenon because of how it's kind of lowered the barrier of entry. You know, obviously, we've got a formula that allows someone to, you know, you've got to be able to run a certain amount of distance comfortably, you know, with the intervals of 1K. But then also you've got these other elements now that a lot of people are going to be new to. Pushing sleds, pulling sleds, you know, wall balls, lunges. You're looking at using a ski erg, a row erg, you know, like a lot of people, especially who are predominantly runners growing up, have never really put their hands on this type of equipment before. But what I want to talk to you guys today about, obviously, is just how this is all incorporated into your own training. We have already taken a number of people into their Hyrox events as part, you know, in the partner workouts or as individuals, and they've all come from different walks of life and certainly come from different backgrounds in their own training. One of them was more of a cyclist growing up. Another one was more of a triathlete. Another one was more of a runner. We've had others who have literally come in wanting to. They've been running kind of for fun, and then they've got the bug, and they wanted to. Then, you know, they started dabbling in the commercial gym, and they just wanted more direction. And obviously, we were able to help them with that. But what we want to be understanding, what are some of the key considerations when you look to then bring strength training and endurance training under one roof? Like, what are the key considerations? And it comes back to some of the basics, guys. What I want to share with you is what those would be from our point of view, from my point of view. Number one, guys, would be this underlying physical competency, your ability to perform said event. That's always going to be the thing when we're looking as a coach. Someone comes and they say, right, is this person in a good place, a healthy place, and an injury-free place, or to be able to compete or perform at these levels of intensity? Can you run X amount of distance in an X amount of time? Or over X amount of time? Have you ever put your hands on these types of equipment? Can you move with good range of motion? Can you move with good technique with really these certain areas of movement? If not, what do we need to be considering from the start? Do we need to be rehabilitating previous injuries? Do we want to make sure that you're moving with good functional ability? And so we start to address that from day one. And what any good program will be obviously taking you through some form of screen, bodyweight testing, sampling what you potentially looking at your run mechanics, looking at your lifting mechanics. Why? Because we're about to dump a load of work on top of you. Are you good for it? And again, it's this overriding question time and time again with a lot of this programming that's thrown out into the world is there any type of, you know, accountability in place? Because guys, like Hyrox, take one look at what that a Hyrox event would look like. There is a absolute insane amount of work that is expected of you in that hour and a half, 2 hours of work, depending on who you are. Let's be honest, some of these top performers are doing it in an hour plus, or hour less, should I say. But look at their backgrounds. Like, some of them are coming into it from elite level running or endurance sports, who are then learning about how to move with that, with the functional fitness exercises. Or you've got others who are kind of coming in from more of a functional fitness background. You've got other people coming in from a team sports. But essentially, what we're looking for, guys, and what I want you to be thinking about is your physical competency. Is it in a good place? Yes or no? Before you start dumping a load of training on top of your body, let's make sure you're in a good place. Are you physically sound? If you are, then we can start to build things up. And during this analysis, we can start to look at, what are the key areas that we need to really start to be working on? Is it obviously working on making lower back strength, your single leg strength? Is it upper body strength? Is it your aerobic ability? There's so many different qualities within Hyrox that we want to be considering. Understanding the impact of what these different elements bring and how they conflict, this concurrent training when you're training for both, how you'd manipulate this type of training into your current already busy timetable. One of the most important things we look at SFE is how can we put high amounts of training, high loads of training onto an already busy lifestyle? What's the best recipe for an individual? As in, a mother, a father, someone who's running a business, someone's working 50, 60 hours a week, that commutes a lot, travels a lot. What is the best recipe that's going to fit on top of that busy lifestyle? How much strength work? How much aerobic training do we need to be? An interval-based training do we need to be working on? What is that? What's the construct of that? That could be one of the most important things as well. Because again, if you put too much on top of someone, you're trying to fit a full-time program on top of an already busy schedule, it's kind of you're setting yourself up for failure straight away. So having this more of an individualized plan to what it's going to look like for you, again, huge amount of power to that because it's going to just set you on the right in the right direction. What we talk about, whether you are a strength athlete first, an aerobic athlete first, potentially an endurance athlete first, you're going to have strengths and weaknesses, right? Also, one of the most important things to be considering when you're kind of working towards a Hyrox event, you're working in this functional fitness space, is understanding that the implications of high heart rate versus maximal strength. Concurrent training, we are looking to manipulate these variables all the time, but when you're bringing these variables together in one event, there's going to be a trade-off. This is what we need to be understanding. Why it's important to be developing your maximal strength, but also understanding what your training thresholds are, your zones of training are. The higher your zone of effort in terms of your heart rate, the more compromised your strength is going to be. One of the biggest things I learned from spending so much time around CrossFit athletes, etc., is their obsession with trying to elevate their levels of maximal strength. So when they were going into competition, those competition weights were actually kind of lower percentages of their maximal weight. So they wanted to be going in with knowing that their heart rate was going to be getting jacked up, doing whatever kind of Metcon or whatever kind of 21, 15, 9 or whatever interval-based workout they were going to be doing. But when they were coming to the barbell, they were coming into the strength exercise they were doing, they were working at a moderate to high percentage of their maximal strength, not a maximal strength. So what I'm saying here, guys, is that there's a huge value depending on what camp you're coming from. Are you more of an aerobic athlete first, or you're coming in as a maximal strength athlete? Understanding where you lie with heart rate and maximal strength is going to be really important. And which quality do you need to be manipulating the most? Do you need to be bumping up your levels of maximal strength so that the competition weight, the weights that you're going to be moving, the amount of work you're going to be doing is going to be more of an average for you, more of a medium effort, or medium to high effort instead of a maximal effort? Otherwise, both of these, if you allow your heart rate to be jacked up, and then you're coming in front of a sled, you're working through those lunges, you're performing those exercises, and it's at a maximal state, you're going to have a very, very hard day out. So it's understanding what qualities you need to be working on. Do you need to be working on more of the anaerobic, aerobic factors of your running? If you're more of a strength athlete, do you need to be working on understanding your zones of work in terms of your heart rate, understanding where trust me, we've had people blow themselves to pieces in those first few intervals because of the row and the ski, which is obviously by design. They're forcing you to work at those higher thresholds, but this is how you play it. But again, understanding how the trade-off between this concurrent training, how you manipulate your training throughout the weeks and the phases of training leading up to this is going to be really important. Movement mechanics, good technique. These are things that you can't be dialing in on enough. There's seconds made, you can save seconds, save minutes by working with more efficiency, getting down and up off the ground with your burpees, your lunge technique, your kettlebell carries, your sandbag carries, your sled push, your sled pulls. There's so many things. Your erg, understanding the pacing, how to use the damper on the erg, understanding your stroke, how with your rower or your ski. Understanding your technique is going to give you minutes to be working with, in terms of either holding you back or obviously getting ahead. So these are areas that you really want to be kind of dialing in on. And again, just having a coaching eye, kind of looking at the detail, the quality of these movements, it's going to give you a lot to be thinking about. And obviously, guys, the big one in the room is injury prevention. How can we prevent injury when you're training through these aspects? Well, I've lined them out for you guys. Physical competency is number one. Understanding what your physical competency looks like from the start of your program. If you're trying to do all of this type of training on top of a body that is not holistically sound, isn't relatively balanced, guys, you're going to overload. You're going to compensate, especially with some of these big, powerful base movements that you're going to experience within Hyrox, burpees. Looking at lunge walks, you're looking at wall balls. These are big, full body movements that require relatively good symmetrical biomechanics. Understanding the impact of high heart rate versus maximal strength. Guys, manipulating those two variables poorly, that's, again, compensation, fatigue, poor biomechanics. It's all going to compound, and especially over a training block. So understanding how to manipulate that, where your current levels are, what your levels of strength are, what your levels of conditioning are, what do you need to be working on, how do we manipulate those? Your movement mechanics away from the sport of Hyrox. Do you move well through single leg? Through basic plyometric drills? Can you land, hop, skip, jump? Can you produce power, both feet? Do you have good upper body strength, good core strength, good lower back strength, posterior chain strength? All these qualities want to be in abundance, because that's all going to help prevent injury over time. All right. But guys, Hyrox, again, another great example of how we can present and showcase our levels of fitness. It's an amazing challenge. I'm going to be taking part in one with my brother-in-law, hopefully coming up. It's something that I actually have always been dabbling with way back when, even before CrossFit came to the scene. High intensity training, manipulating kind of this metabolic conditioning, where you're bringing in different variations of cardio-based training, maximal strength training, calisthenic training, manipulating these variables. It's always going to bring about a level of type 2 fun, pleasure, pain, fulfillment, but also gives a great way of just community and everything else in between. So it's a great way, again, showcasing strength for endurance, but also showcasing these other qualities that we love to champion at SFE, which is having great physical competency, being able to move and understand your body in a high heart rate environment, in a maximal strength environment, understanding your body across these longer domains of training. All of this, guys, is about just enjoying your fitness. So, guys, I hope that was useful. Just some thoughts, musings around Hyrox. Love it. Again, it sits right alongside these other companies, these other brands and businesses out there. And again, it's just a great example of how we can be fit. We can use our fitness. And as I said, any questions around this, if you're someone who is struggling with injury, who's looking to kind of participate in your first Hyrox, you're looking to get involved more in this type of training, reach out. We'd love to help. Speak soon.